been working very hard to revive the economy, but still have challenges. Now, what do you think are the priorities for your cabinet?
First of all, yes, the economic revival is on the agenda. The transformation of technology is under discussion, and these are the two major factors which is impacting all kind of economic activity around the globe, and particularly in our region. There is a discourse between the global north and south, between east and west. There are issues about the different conflicts and different flashpoints, and how does it is impacting the supply chain and overall economic activity. Mm-hmm. Pakistan do see itself in this environment, how to take the best advantage of the opportunities which are being offered, and what are the challenges which are being posed by such circumstances, and how to respond to those challenges. So we are in the middle ground of both ways.
Financial challenges is one of the things some governments are dealing with. I know you are also working very hard on that. What do you think can be the starting point? In other words, the best remedy?
Well, domestically, we need to focus on spending less and earning more. When the government size is not that big, it's a good news. Smart government, efficient governments, a little government is always good for the business. And more revenue generation, good taxation system, structural reforms in that. This is one area in which I think so should be on the top of the domestic economic agenda of revivalism. And then taking opportunity, what is being offered in the region, in the manner the BRI is offering under the leadership of President Xi. This is another area which Pakistan should be very focused and is focused to take full advantage of that. The relocation of industry from the China, it is going towards Southeast Asia, South Asia, many parts of South America. Pakistan should take best advantage of that and convert itself into a viable economic entity, and the manufacturing sector can become a hub for the whole of the region if we bring the right kind of policies when it comes to the energy and its pricing and the rest of the associated ecosystem.
The right kind of policy, that's a very general term. I would love to dig a little bit more about that. To you, what is the so-called right kind of policies?
By right kind of policy, I mean that we have to encourage the business in a competitive manner, provide them the competitive rates for electricity. If we are producing expensive electricity, we cannot subsidize businesses. We cannot provide them the rates which are more competitive in the region for the production cost. So this is one area I feel is the most important, where we need to rationalize our policy and bring the market rate to a level where the industry becomes more competitive. We have got the cheap labor, we have got the right kind of the skill. So once we introduce the right energy policy, we would be, I'm pretty much sure, in a position to become a manufacturing hub in the region. The right kind of the energy policy is that you give electricity per unit which is in competition with India, with Bangladesh, with Sri Lanka, and under more or less under 8 cents per unit.
Timeline for that?
Sooner the better. but industrialization is one of the area where we are focusing on special economic zones and bringing all these policies where the FDI would directly take advantage from such kind of interventions from the government side, and we should only do the progressive taxation of those business entities and let them grow.
You mentioned about the Belt and Road Initiative last year celebrated already the 10th anniversary. We also see a transition about the areas and the ways of doing things regarding BRI. Earlier there was massive investment on infrastructure, different parts of the world. Now there seems to be more focus and targeted with green development and sustainability. So what does that mean for the kind of cooperation between China and Pakistan as a result of the focus and the style changes?
I think so. There are many opportunities when it comes to all these initiatives under these sustainable and green initiatives, and the kind of opportunities it is offering, which I was referring towards the relocation of the industry, the climate change, and its global responsibility, production of clean energy, and for the consumption, best consumption practices for the populations. This would be an area where innovation would be counted, where new technologies would come in, and where...
And also massive investment, by the way.
Of course, massive investment, which definitely China has got the capacity to cater for such investments, along with its partners. But Pakistan is a mid-sized country which can benefit a lot from this. As they say it in China, that when China grows, everyone grows. So when China benefits, everyone benefits. The Chinese model, the best part about that is that it believes in economic intervention, it believes in the win-win situation, it believes in mutual coordination and cooperation. So when you have such an attitude, the creativity comes, the new solution-based approaches develops, and the human journey, I think so it is, it goes further.
Mr. Prime Minister, it's very articulative when you say when China grows, everybody could also have an opportunity to grow. But as you also have noticed, Mr. Prime Minister, as earlier articulated by the Chinese Premier during this speech then, that China also is now looking at the future growth. So you see, China is also trying to think about new ways, but not necessarily having all the answers. So there was earlier thoughts about the so-called China model. Now, many things are changing all at the same time. How do you see China is trying to still rediscovering as they go along what is the best practices? What does that mean for developing countries, emerging economies, Pakistan always, of course, included?
To countries like us and the people who are residing outside the Chinese society, this approach where there are no answers but there are still questions is so encouraging that the engagement is the basic principle. The people are open to listen to different kind of answers. They are exploring, they are searching, and that's how the entire universe can unfold its own mysteries and secrets. The challenge becomes, or the issue becomes, when there is an attitude of rigidity, that there is a fixation, that a typical kind of political system or economic system would give the entire answers for all the panacea of the world. That becomes part of the problem. But if you are open to ideas, if you are open to discussions, and you are willing to give opportunity to different kind of solutions which are available in the market, that leads toward a healthy discourse, and that's where I think so the Chinese approach will be more viable and more constructive and more engaging.
Mr. Prime Minister, one of the issues Pakistan, China, and many others are thinking is, what about this divide between the so-called North and the global South? And we see that it's ever widening as a result of the pandemic and other issues happening, especially recently with the development of artificial intelligence. Some believe it could be in the next industrial revolution. Well, that's a question mark, but still the concern is big. How are you articulating what we are experiencing right now?
Well, the issue or the divide between the so-called North and South is that there is certain economic advantages to the individuals and nations, and there are certain disadvantages to the individuals and nations on the other side. So how do that gap can be well addressed? It is leading towards anxiety, one. It is encouraging probably disruption in many societies. And on the top, you have got these new technology, which either is enabling the social order, or it is encouraging the disruption or leading towards the anarchy. starting from the digital space and then the electronic spaces to AI. This is a journey which has taken so swiftly that many leadership, be it in South or in the North, are it's very challenging for them to fathom the implications of all these changes which are happening. Would it lead to mass migration? Would it lead to further conflicts based either on identity or on the basis of have and have-nots? Can that kind of sense of deprivation lead to conflicts? So these are all challenges which needs to be addressed, and for a mutual coexistence between the so-called South and North, further needs dialogue, further needs discussion with an open mind and open heart, where a planet is available for everyone, be it West, South, North, East, where peacefully everyone can reside with a dignified sense of being.
Of course, we're not living in a perfect world, as you know, Mr. Prime Minister. Geopolitics, geoeconomics, all these backdrops are all intertwining at this moment when we speak. So is that the kind of discussion, do you think, can take place at all?
The discussions are already happening. The discussions are already happening in a very focused, limited intellectual groups, policymaker groups, political class, business leaders. But in my opinion, it should have an outreach which is enlarged. It should be at the en masse level, at public level, in public domain, and that discourse needs to be an informed discourse, where the quality information is pumped in, and that quality information can build around all the narratives which is required, so that people on both sides can make their choices with a moral compass.
When it comes to politics these days, a lot of people are asking the question, whether are we just hearing narratives and rhetorics in politics? Are there really going to be actions towards the promises? What do you think, Mr. Prime Minister, for politicians and for future of politics, what is the best way to do that? How can we wake people up about implementations and actions?
Yeah. First of all, in my opinion, that in the first phase, you need to create the right kind of narrative, the right kind of information, the quality information. If you don't do that, and if you rely on a skewed information, on a distorted information,
misinformation, disinformation,
or disinformation, and you build a narrative which is not based around reality. So even if that is a stated goal, the action towards that stated goal would always be an unattainable goal. So it is better first to phase it out, plan it properly, bring a narrative which is based on informed discourse and quality information. And once you do that, the implementation part, the action part, relatively becomes very easy.
Now, we have so many examples about the challenges of doing that. I know China and Pakistan are working very closely, for example, as you said, Mr. Prime Minister, on Belt and Road Initiative. But at different times, there are always challenges coming up as to the implementation. You earlier articulated that very well in different interviews. So how do you see now, which stage are we in implementing some of the earlier plans, and what are some of the takeaways you have along the way?
We have already achieved a phase of PRI, that is the CPAC's first phase, and we are benefiting from all those early harvest projects. The second phase, I feel we are entering into that, and we do need to do more deliberation when it comes to the second phase, and the connectivity around those trade and industrialization event which we anticipate would be a big hallmark of the next decade, the coming decade, needs good deliberations, more deliberation prior to bringing anything into the action. And both sides are engaged. We have developed a lot of our connectivity, road, air, and the rest of the connectivity corridors. So we are benefiting from that whole ecosystem of doing trade with one another, and other regional players coming over there and having interconnected trade activity over there.
There's a lot of debates about China's economy that is also taking place in the corridors and the hallways as we see business leaders from all over the world are talking about that. What do you think is the state of the Chinese economy as a close neighbor of China, as someone who interact with China on a very frequent basis, and the logic behind it?
Well, to me, the Chinese economy, I'm always sanguine about it. I'm always sanguine about it. The reason or the logic behind it, that there are 1.5 billion consumers and there are 1.5 billion producers. So they're importers in terms of economy, they're consuming. So the rest of the world would be linked to China. And they are producing and they would be exporting to the rest of the world. So how could you divorce 1.5 billion population from 8 billion? It has to remain connected. It has got one of the finest human resource. Their knowledge economy has reached to a certain level. They are innovative. They have got the right kind of finances, huge marketplace. The rest of the world is interested in China, and China is interested in the rest of the world. So it would keep growing.
Mr. Prime Minister, this year is a tumultuous year, to say the least, 2024. You see a few dozens of elections going on in the world, half of the world population going through election. You also see economies that are in transition. So how do you see the prospect of 2024 for a country like Pakistan with all these unpredictabilities?
Well, these political rituals of election are a constitutional requirement of different political systems, including Pakistan. We are heading towards that in our own country as well. So we do wish well for the people who exercise their choice and who elect their mandated governments and leadership, with the hope that they have the economic revival plan on their preference list, and it would be on the top agenda in Pakistan and in and around the world.
Mr. Prime Minister, as always, what a pleasure seeing you, and thank you so much
for
taking your time and sharing your thoughts. Thank you.